Hello guys, welcome to my channel. We just had a dev talk video dropped by ZZZ devs. They talk about the future of the game, season 2 and onwards, what's the direction of the game that is. And I will go over all of this stuff and also present my concerns that I do have with some of this stuff. For context, I have played Honkai Impact 3 for over a year and I do have some legitimate concerns with the direction the game is going based on this dev talk. So how we'll try to structure this is I simply go over every single point said within the video and then add my additional thoughts and opinions about it. So first we'll start the 2.0 story. They said within the dev talk that Yish 1 will be the main focus of 2.0 story. My apologies if I mispronounced the name. Alongside Yish 1 and her faction Yunkui Summit, Obol Squads and Angel of Delusion will also be important factions in 2.x. A teaser will also release on April 13 to tease these factions and the story of Season 2. Be careful, some of this stuff might be spoilers within those teasers and whatnot. Just as a heads up, if you don't want to be spoiled, that is. Also, the big change that I personally am not a big fan of is that in Season 2, instead of managing the video store, we'll be managing Yishuan Dojo. Yes, we're going to China, and this place is set in a new location called Waifei Peninsula, which is next to Lemnian Hollow. Instead of using the HDD to enter missions, you'll enter the Lemnian Hollow directly. And now you might be thinking, what about the proxies? What's gonna be their fate? Well, looks like the direction of MCs is changing drastically because Issue 1 will be the proxy's mentor, which means she's gonna train us, and by that it's very obvious at this point that MCs will become playable characters. So if you went into this game because you wanted like a hacker type of gameplay with an operator and so on, that's completely changing. Looks like it's getting completely scrapped, which personally I like the original premise more, but you can also say this depends on your own tastes, right? They also do plan to reduce loading screens, so you'll be able to move in and out of buildings much faster. They will also change how you travel between the areas, which is going to involve a map of new Erido instead of just a slider. The slider was very problematic because as they added more areas, you had to slide way more, so that's a good change. They also have said there will be a minimap during overworld exploration, and now I'm not sure whether are they gonna push more for open world type of exploration or something like that as well by having these minimaps. I'm not certain because Honkai Impact 3 did try at some point to have quite a lot of quote-unquote open world areas, which didn't really fit or make that much sense in practicality, because the game wasn't designed to be like that. So I hope they don't do something like that in this game, because a lot of us that play this game played precisely because it's not an open world type of a game. Also now special episodes will be merged into main story. I am not happy about this one, and I'll explain why. Honkai Star Rail used to have character stories separately from the main story, but later down the line they started to shoehorn what could be easily a character story into the main story, which means that you might have within the main story very fillery moments that you might feel like, oh, this is not necessary. I wish this was a separate character story. You could also argue they're doing this for a couple of reasons. I believe the primary reason is very likely because they want to make sure the latest, newest character gets promoted within the main story, because some people might skip the side stories, character stories and stuff like that. Maybe also for efficiency / cutting costs. I'm not sure about that. If you have some idea about this stuff or something else to add, feel free to write it within the comments down below. I personally hope that special episodes or at least character quests will stay and not being shoehorned into the main story, because a lot of people had issues with this stuff in HSR story, and believe me, you don't really want that to happen to this game as well. Also, Zenless Zone Zero will be on Xbox. Cool for those 2 players that play on Xbox. Smile, fight me. And here is another big change they're planning to do. They want to change the combat system to feel more like 3 agents fighting together instead of just purely focusing on the main DPS. So in the future, support agent kits will involve more out-of-field actions that are visible in battle. We already have seen a preview with this, of course, with Reaper and Zombie Aftershocks, but 2.x kits will be even more involved in this regard. My issue with this change specifically coming from Honkai Impact 3 is that there might be too much effects and stuff going on the screen, which is very hard to see what's going on if you have all of these characters doing all the stuff at the same time. Also, this change would technically require old characters to get reworked / buffed to accommodate this type of play. Speaking of that, that is also happening. Yes, older characters will be buffed by the looks of it. They want to make sure these old characters are more quote-unquote future-proof and have a better longevity. That's their words. Also, they did say specifically they want to change not necessarily just numerical changes, but also rework alter character kits with new moves. And they showcased Lost Void agent gear stuff when you have the new abilities and kits effectively on those characters. And of course, with these changes of like reworking old characters, they also want to make sure that these old characters will get to be played with future new partners. And this is also one of the business strategies. Effectively, by reworking, buffing old characters, you make them function, work better with new upcoming characters. So it gives you a bigger reason as a player to pull for them. This is a very standard, traditional type of a gacha practice, and many gachas do this. But nevertheless, I just hope that the combat itself doesn't evolve into Honkai Impact 3rd combat, because that combat is very messy, and I would really hope we do not go into that direction. And actually, there was also another interesting point they mentioned, something about new enemy combat design that will encourage teamwork between agents. Well, this could be interpreted in many ways, but this could also mean that perhaps they just wanna shield even harder for certain type of newer units, reruns and whatnot, or synergies between characters to try to sell them even more. So they basically could make content where you will want to have a synergy between specific agents to get most out of it. And this would be also potentially a new sales strategy for Hoyoverse, but we'll have to see this in more detail as we get 2.0 information. Nevertheless, what they already said, I am legit concerned about this turning out very closely / similar to something like Honkai Impact 3rd. And speaking of Honkai Impact 3rd, Issue 1 reminds me a lot of Void Herrscher. Who knows, maybe she is the Void Herrscher XP. Smile. There also have been some extra stuff said, which will go over it. All the events such as Grand Martial Adventure and Bangbu vs Ethereal event will continue to return with more improvements. So this is something similar to what already Genshin and I guess HSR does. You know, like in Genshin when you had that tower defense event gameplay for Chinese New Year or whatever it was, and they rerun it and like improve it every single time. I guess it's gonna be something like that. They also plan to add more kind of events such as Bangbu duels, controlling a giant Bangbu mecha in combat. They also want to do some fluff events where just chilling with your agents. They still said there will be combat events, of course. So in terms of events, I think it's gonna be all right. We are getting at least more events than what you have in HSR. Whether you like those events, that's completely up to you. But yeah, basically with this dev talk, we're going to China and game direction is completely going into a new direction, specifically the combat, how they want to treat buff / take care of the old characters. Also, Issue 1 will be the main focus of 2.0 story, so that means expect her very likely to be the new Miyabi, like the strongest character in the game. The content will be very likely shielded heavily across the year for Issue 1, because she's effectively quote-unquote a title character. At least that's what they're trying to push her to be. Also, a very interesting thing to point out is that it has not not even been 1 year of the game and the devs are already talking about buffing old characters. And if this doesn't tell you how accelerated power creep in this game is compared to some of their other titles, I don't know what else will convince you at this point. Also did look through some comments on YouTube, Reddit about this dev talk, and besides all of the positive stuff, I also saw something very interesting, which I personally believe it's far-fetched, but you take it as you will. Some people legit believe that Chinese-inspired area and story is rather concerning because they think that Hoyo games that have Chinese-inspired areas and story will have twice as more lengthy text, words, and whatnot. Personally, I don't think that's gonna be the case. I also seen some concern from players about the character buffs. Some of them think that the buffs might also come in form of a new character for your old character, something similar to Sunday/Jingwan situation from HSR if you come from there. But I personally don't think that's the case. I think their plan is simply to buff rework old characters so they work better with newer characters to give you more reasons to buy new characters. Because remember, this game pushes a lot of new characters all the time. There's only one PT you get per patch, so having the ability to use some of your old characters to play with the new thing gives you more reasons to get the new character, instead of like if it's a back-to-back package, it's much harder to get those teammates. So for example, think of it like Sambi and Trigger situation. They're a back-to-back package, but imagine if Sambi had some old characters that were literally buffed, reworked to work really well with her, similarly to Trigger, and then some people would decide, okay, now I'll get Sambi, even if I don't get Trigger because I don't have enough gems. But yeah, guys, do let me know in the comments down below what you think about this dev talk. Feel free to tell me all your opinions, from positive to negative, whatever you might have. I, at this point, would say I'm concerned, and I would definitely like to see more information for 2.0, because I believe 2.0 and the patches post after it will give us a clear picture of what is the direction of this game is going. But it's definitely safe to say at this point that the direction of the game you initially had, even within the story and stuff, it's completely altered. You know, MCs looks like they will be playable, no more hacker experience or something like that by the looks of it. So yeah, I guess this is it for this video. If you like the video, feel free to give it a like. If you dislike it, you can dislike it, Saj. I wish you a wonderful day and see you in the next video. Ciao.